just so you know who I am, I know Peter just introduced me, but I wanted to let you know I'm also a seller. I've been selling since 2010, and I've written another book, and I've done consulting for Amazon. And in about 2014, I had clients come to me who said, you know, I've been suspended, and can you help me get reinstated? And I thought, well, okay, let's give it a try. And I had no idea at that time that I would be doing this pretty much, well, it is full-time and a half, that things were about to explode on the platform. So starting last spring, things went really crazy. Can we leave those doors open, please? It is so hot in here. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So basically, before I started selling on Amazon in 2010, I was a business consultant. So this is the background that I bring to what I do for sellers on the platform. Is we not only help them get back selling on Amazon, but we also tell them, you know, what's going on in their business that is getting them in trouble. Because a lot of times it's not just a little rule infraction. It really is a systemic problem in their business. And so we are actually business consultants. We got a large team here in the U.S. and in the Philippines. I've got 28 people doing this with me now full time. So anyway, mine is the most favorite topic that sellers always want to talk about. You know, what I'm actually talking about is keeping what you've worked so hard to build. So not a fun topic, but an important one. And so I want to get all the bad news out of the way because nobody likes it. And so I thought I'd sort of rip off the Band-Aid here real quick. So here's some things you need to know about avoiding account suspension today. And next time I talk, it could be different. Where you get your inventory matters. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, so I'm not going to go into it much right here, but it is really important. Amazon cares where you get your inventory. They are questioning where you're getting your product, and they're shutting down sellers who are getting them from inauthentic sources. You're going to need to change or update many of your listings. So the algorithm has recently been tweaked to go after listings that are not compliant with the Amazon style guide, which is a very boring way of saying that they're unhappy with the pictures, they're unhappy with the descriptions, they don't like people who cheat and put things in the listings they shouldn't, they don't like ugly pictures, and now they've decided they're going to suspend us if they don't like our listings. And they don't care how long you've been selling, your volume, what a great seller you are, how wonderful your other metrics are. Every single seller is at risk for suspension if they don't pay attention to Amazon's rules. And every single seller can be brought down by the buyer. And so we're going to talk a lot about the buyer today. Oh, and here's something you all need to hear, because the problem with sellers that are smart is that they're very creative, and Amazon does not value creativity. Amazon values compliance and conformity. They want a consistent experience for the buyer every single time. They are the McDonald's of the retail world. And so, you know, whenever someone comes out with some really clever idea to kind of manipulate the system or to do a trick on the platform to get more of anything, sales, rank, whatever, you can just know that it's going to be wrong and you're going to be punished. So, because they are not about creativity. And it's not going to get better, okay? So they're really happy with the results of all the changes that they've made. And while some of the rollout has been really gnarly, the fact is they are continuing to make changes to the platform constantly. They're moving towards a big goal that's going to take a long time for them to get to. And so we can expect that changes on the platform are only going to accelerate. Yay, we're all happy. Okay. So, what is risky? So I'm going to talk about things today that are risky, less risky. And the question people say is, well, what is risky? And I'm going to say, you tell me, because it really is up to you. How much can you take, right? I have clients who can't sleep at night. And so they're kind of what we would call risk intolerant. And they have reason to be, okay? And then I have other clients who seem to just want to walk off a cliff without looking. So it really is how much you can take, how much can you mitigate, and what is your plan B? So as I go through this presentation, just think through these questions for yourself, because I don't have a right answer. What I will talk to you about are what some of your risks are, and then you can decide for yourself what the answer is to these 3 questions. Okay, so this is all done by robots. You know, I always tell people that there's no humans involved, and it's not exactly right, but it kind of is. So here's what's happening. You've got an algorithm that's coming after you. And what happens is when they see the right kind of pattern, or they see actually more accurately a deviation from the pattern of the good, happy seller and the good, happy buyer, that's when you might get suspended. Maybe your listing or maybe your account. And nobody's really going to look at your case until you submit your appeal. So you're basically suspended by a robot. Then a minion sends you an email and they press send, so there is a human involved. But not really, because they're not reading it, looking at it. They're not saying, oh, let's look at Cynthia Stine as a seller. Let's look at her history. Let's see what's going on with her. No, it is send. And then eventually someone's going to look at it in the sense that they're going to read your appeal, maybe. But you can't count on them to be business people, right? These are people who are working in the seller performance department of Amazon. They're not out there selling on the platform like you are, right? They're not business people. They don't understand selling on the platform. Most of them don't even know how you sell. It's been estimated that 75% of the people inside of Amazon and in upper management don't know what arbitrage is. Okay, they don't know what all of these models are that we're talking about. There's just selling and not selling. And so they have no concept of why we do the things that we do, where we get our inventory. They just have right and wrong. Okay, and I just wanted to show you basically what's going on today. So the last few times I've spoken, we've talked about product quality. Today, I'm mostly talking about where your inventory comes from. So counterfeit or fake claim that a buyer might make is about the product itself. They look at the product, it doesn't look right, it doesn't smell right, it doesn't taste right, it doesn't look right. And so they say it's fake, bootleg, counterfeit, not quite right. Inauthentic is where you buy your product. So the product might be authentic. It may look right, smell right, taste right, but where it came from is not right. And this is the world according to Amazon. Yes?
Do they care if you buy direct or indirect?
They absolutely care. So, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But yes, that's the problem. They care more than we do. So, they want you to buy your product directly from the manufacturer, an authorized distributor, an authorized reseller. That's it. And by authorized, we mean that it's authorized by the brand or the manufacturer or the rights holder, right? And you have to be authorized to sell it on Amazon. So when you buy your product, if they are not authorized to sell it to you to resell, that's an inauthentic source. So think about that. If you're buying from an importer or something, and they don't have permission from the brand to resell that product to an online retail store, then you can't sell it. So, and I know there's a lot of questions about this, but I'd like to ask you guys to wait because we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. Okay, copyright and infringement IP issues. This is huge right now. And it's huge for a couple of reasons. One, the rights holders are getting out on the platform and kicking up the dust. But the other reason is you've got competitors who've learned that this is a good way to get their competitors knocked off the platform. And, and other scallywags. Not only do you have competitors playing dirty tricks, but you also have packs of predatory lawyers. No offense to anyone who's a lawyer here, but there are lawyers who've discovered, well, they already knew this, but hey, you don't have to represent a brand to file a lawsuit on their behalf. And so they're going around making claims and sending letters and scaring the hell out of sellers and extorting money. I've seen it usually between $3,000 and $5,000 in order to settle an IP claim for a product or a company that they don't even represent. And that's actually legal. Safety claims. This has been a new one. It's been really upsetting to a lot of my clients. The reason why safety claims are going to seller performance instead of the safety department, which is what's happening, is these are perceptions. These are buyer perceptions. It's not that there's anything actually wrong with your product. I have clients who sell supplements, for example, with known side effects. Like it might give you a headache. It might upset your stomach. You know, known side effects to the product that the safety department doesn't care about because they're known side effects. But if buyers start complaining about them, seller performance gets involved because to them, that's a product quality issue. And the irony of it is, as I'm sure some of you can appreciate, is if you actually get the side effects, it means you got the real product. So what they really want you to do here is they want you to fix the buyer perception problem. And so sometimes for our clients, what we've had to do is help them communicate to the buyer before they buy that they might get headaches, stomach aches, you know, whatever, and how to avoid them and how to correct their problem. And so it's all about perception and product quality, not really that there's anything wrong with the product. So I think we can expect to continue to see weird claims like this popping up from the Amazon algorithm over the next year. So they are just getting tighter and tighter, and every time one of these pops up, we're like, what is that? So that's a new one. And I will say the suspension robots are really good about catching you. So a lot of people come to me, they have no idea. They can't imagine why Amazon has done this to them. They're innocent fish caught in the big net, except when we look into it, they really aren't. When we look into it, Amazon has nailed them. And so I will tell you, the algorithm is really good. And so what's really happening with most of my clients is they don't understand what these claims are. They don't understand that inauthentic doesn't mean that your product is counterfeit, though it might be, and it doesn't mean that your product is stolen goods, though it might be. What it means is you can't prove that it's legitimate, which is different. Okay, so now we're going to get into it. What is the gray market? Why does Amazon care? Because they really, really, really care. And the reason they care is it's all about buyer trust. Now, they have had a big problem with counterfeit on the platform. You may not be aware of that, but they have. They do. And of course, when counterfeit goes out to a buyer, it erodes buyer trust. Naturally, they're upset. They paid a lot of money. They got a piece of crap. So everything that Amazon, this is the catchword inside the company. Everything is about buyer trust and rebuilding buyer trust. That's why they're coming down on the product review people. That's why they're coming down on, the gray market. That's why they're coming down on everything that they're coming down on, because it's all about the buyers feeling like that Amazon is the most trustworthy place to go on the internet to buy goods that are legitimate and authentic. And you know what? I know everyone in this room agrees with that. We just don't like the way they go about it. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to explain this, and this is not a tutorial on what's the gray market. This is more how Amazon looks at the gray market, just so you understand, because I've had sellers argue with me, yeah, that's not gray market. I'm like, it is if you're Amazon. So let's just go over what gray market is according to Amazon. Basically, we see this one a lot. That's why it's at the top of the list. The manufacturer improperly sells a product to you where the intellectual property and rights are owned by another company. So think about a factory in China that maybe is making, An example I heard earlier today, 100,000 pairs of socks for Nike, okay? Then they make another 100,000 pairs of those same socks, and they sell them off into another marketplace. Now, they're not supposed to be doing that. Nike wouldn't be happy about it. It doesn't mean that the socks aren't actually Nike socks. So that's where it gets tricky. But you do see that. Or sometimes they'll open another manufacturing plant and they'll produce these goods and sell it out to the marketplace. And so a lot of times sellers even think that they're buying Nike socks. And it may in fact be a Nike sock, it's just not an authorized Nike sock, okay? And then of course we see just outright theft, right? So this is where somebody else's licensed product is being created in another factory. And I see that a lot too, where guys are buying large quantities of goods. They're like, oh, this is really adorable. And they don't realize that the rights to that product are actually owned by another company. So we've come to a place now as sellers where we're responsible. We have to vet the product so that we know that we're actually buying legitimate goods and that we know that the company that's selling it to us is authorized to sell it to us and that they know that we have the right to sell it on Amazon. It's a big hassle. So again, importers, discounters, distributors, retailers, they sell you goods that they don't have permission to resell. Think about Walmart.com or Target.com. Those guys are retailers. They don't have permission from the brands they sell to sell to us for resale, right? They have permission to sell it to us to use in our homes, our offices, whatever, but not to resell, So because Target doesn't have the right to sell to resellers, they have now closed the market to all of us, right? And, part of it's an anti-competitive thing, but the reality is they're not allowed to sell to us. Okay, knockoff luxury goods sold on a branded listing. Obviously, this cheats the buyer and the rights holder. So I've seen people, my clients, who had no idea why it was wrong that they were selling Apple chargers on the Apple charger listing. And I'm like, is it an Apple charger? Well, no, it's not. That's why it's so much cheaper. And surely the person who buys it would know that. And I'm like, no, they don't, because this is Amazon, and they think that they're buying what's in the picture. And when their charger catches on fire, they're pissed. So, and of course we see this a lot with luxury goods, but anything. I've seen knockoffs of just anything. It just surprises the heck out of me. And so, again, if you have a knockoff, it's not illegal to sell as long as you're not pretending it's Apple. So you can sell your knockoff charger or your private label charger. You just can't sell it on the Apple listing. Okay. Cross-border arbitrage. Okay, this we've seen a ton of, especially with some of my high-volume sellers. They'll buy something in Europe, they'll resell it in the U.S., vice versa. Japan, I have some Chinese sellers who are doing Japan Amazon flips, buying in Japan Amazon, selling in the U.S. Wow, I just wondered why they weren't suspended sooner. You're not allowed to do that. And basically the reason for that is you got territorial rights. So again, the brand owner, maybe they have certain territorial rights. They can sell a certain version of it in a certain country, and then they have another person selling it in the other country. So there's that issue. But usually there's a different model or a different formulation or different ingredients depending on the marketplace. And the obvious one is, like with appliances, there's a different plug. And so you can't sell from one market to another. Now, I have clients who argue this with me all the time because they sell things like sunglasses, and they're like, look, it's a sunglass. And I'm like, I get it. There probably is absolutely no difference between a European sunglasses and an American one, but they don't have the authority to sell it in this country. So they can buy it in Europe, they just can't sell it in the US. And we see this with DVDs and all kinds of things. Liquidation. Okay, so liquidation is pretty much, it's pretty much a forbidden model on Amazon. Amazon will never say to you, you can't sell liquidation on the platform. They will never say to you, you can't do retail arbitrage. What they will do instead is they will make it impossible to do those models. They will enact rules and changes to the platform so that you can't effectively do it. So what they did with liquidators is they just don't accept any of their invoices. It's a really good way to kill liquidation on the platform. So when they get an inauthentic complaint, they're done, right? They're not allowed to sell liquidation. So the only time you're allowed to sell liquidation on the platform is if you are buying it direct from the manufacturer or an authorized distributor and you're dealing with maybe overstocks. So if you can show an invoice that says I bought it directly from Nike, okay, you can do that. And I do have clients that do that. They buy overstock directly from the company, but not very many. Most people who are doing liquidation are buying truckloads of stuff from guys who consolidate from all these different retailers, and it's a big hodgepodge of banana boxes, if it's grocery, or just boxes. And Amazon does not accept that. Those products are not legitimate. It doesn't mean they're counterfeit, but they are not legitimate. You cannot sell them on the platform. And Amazon flips. Okay, that is forbidden. And the reason why, and it's specifically forbidden, is because when you buy from a retail outlet and you open your box, it is now used. Just like when you buy from a store and you walk out the front door, your product is now used. That's how Amazon sees it. So you are selling a used product, and you're not allowed to do that. Also, even though you might be buying directly from Amazon, okay, and you think, well, what could be more authentic than that, right? Because we know how sticky Amazon is about authenticity. But the real problem is most of Amazon's goods are bought from other vendors, right? So they really can't swear to God that everything that they actually sell on their platform is legit, and they're not going to take the responsibility for that. They leave that to you. So if you're doing Amazon flips, either from one platform to another, or just taking advantage of a lightning deal or a good deal and then reselling it later, and you get an inauthentic complaint from a buyer, they will not accept your invoice, and you'll be done doing that ever again. So I just wanted to say the reason why they're really also going after liquidation and retail arb, although I'm sure most people here are not doing arbitrage. FeedVisor clients tend to be different models. But the reason they're going after them is that they have the worst product quality problems. So think about the guy buying something by the truckload, right? So by the time the product actually gets to you, it's been on a retail shelf, pulled from the shelf, stuck in a truck, gone to your warehouse, shipped to Amazon, shipped to the buyer. And a lot of times they're not beautiful by the time they get to the seller. When people buy retail arbitrage, it's the same thing, but without the truck, okay? And so you have a lot of complaints with imperfect products. And that's another main reason why they don't like these models. And they don't like drop shipping for the same reason, because they can't prove authenticity. So unless you're drop shipping directly from the manufacturer, as far as they're concerned, you're not buying a legitimate good. Okay, we're going to try this sucker again. Okay. So everyone knows about this because this has been going on for the past couple weeks. So what's happening with the brand gating? Okay, this is something that Amazon is doing. This is not being done by the brands. Just so you know, it's not Nike that's doing this, it's Amazon. The brands that they're coming down on are the ones that have the most counterfeit problems. These are the ones where they regularly find counterfeit. And so those are the ones that they're coming after first. But you can count on the fact that this brand gating is going to go on and on and on. They're going to move their way down the list to the items that are less frequently counterfeited. And pretty much you can bet that by this time next year, any major brand on the platform will be gated. Okay? And obviously this affects liquidation and arbitrage sellers the hardest because they're dealing with going wide rather than deep. And so if they want to sell all of the stuff they just bought in that truck, they're going to pay a lot of fees. But it won't matter anyway because Amazon will not accept their invoices or receipts if it's liquidation. And you bet. Sorry. It was such a big brouhaha. I thought everyone knew, but you're right. Some people have not been freaking out on the internet. They've been working for Q4. Okay. Yes. Here's what's happening. Amazon, and they've been working on this for a while, in their infinite wisdom thought, hey, Q4 is coming, let's screw things up. So what they decided was, and this is part of their ongoing effort to get rid of counterfeit on the platform. Remember, it's about building buyer trust. And so they decided to gate these brands that have counterfeit problems. And by gating them, they mean you have to have permission to sell these brands. And the only thing that you can do to get permission is to either have a letter from the brand, good luck with that, Nike lovers, or you can show invoices, not receipts, but invoices. And you can use those as proof that you're buying from a legitimate source. And then if you're approved, they will then charge you a fee. So I think for Nike, it's $1,500 right now. There are some brands on the platform where it's as high as $5,000. And then there's other brands where it's $500. And the reason why they have different fees is because it depends on how much time and effort and cost they think they're going to incur monitoring those brands, having the products pulled and tested randomly. So they will be testing these products. They're not just going to take our word for it, even if we get ungated in this brand. So people were really upset when Legos was gated because, they're never going to write you a letter. And, nobody has invoices from them unless they are super huge, right? You have to be like the size of Walmart. So this is maybe not that big, but literally you would have to be a brick and mortar business to have invoices from some of these brands that are legit. And then again, you also have to have permission to sell online on Amazon. And some of those brands don't give you permission to do that. So this put a sort of a chill through the marketplace right before fourth quarter as people realized that they had Legos up at the warehouse and Nike, Adidas, and I could go on and on and on, and that they may not be able to sell them. 10 minutes? Okay. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Absolutely not. So you can only sell them if you have permission. It doesn't matter if your goods are used or new. So here's the other thing. They've been rolling this out. So in waves. So some people have already gotten the message that they're gated and they have to be approved, and others are still able to sell. And so for a while, the ones who were still able to sell felt really superior and felt that perhaps that they were such a wonderful seller that they were not going to have to get approved. And so I just want to tell you, no, that's not true. Everybody is going to have to get approved on these brands, but they are rolling it out in waves. I don't know exactly why they're doing it exactly the way they are, but you can be sure that if you have Nike at the warehouse right now, that at some point they're going to come to you and say, we'd like to see your letter from Nike, or we'd like to see your invoices. So just be aware. I'd like to finish the presentation because I can go outside and answer questions afterwards. Okay, and I only have 10 minutes. So anyway, so it is rolling out in waves right now. There are also future plans to gate brands proactively. So what this means is that if you sell a product that they feel would be very easy to become counterfeit, easy to duplicate, they may proactively gate that brand before they've actually had a counterfeit problem on it. So that's what I meant by they're going to start with the big problems today and work their way down and down and down. But there will come a time when you'll realize that pretty much every major brand on the platform is gated, whether they've had counterfeit problems with it or not. Again, your invoices have to be from authentic sources. They're not going to take receipts. You cannot buy from an online retailer. You have to have exactly what they want. And then if you're approved, of course, you pay the fee. Now, I know you're all wondering, gosh, what could be worse than that, Cynthia? So let's quickly go through the rest of the bad news. They're also changing their policy for linked accounts. So it used to be that the only time they looked to see if you were linked with another account was if you were suspended, right? I call it the trace, and it's on you for life once you're suspended. And at that point, then they're looking to see if you have other accounts. So a lot of people think they're really clever. They have multiple accounts. I know nobody in this room, haha. But they think they're really clever, and they don't realize that the reason they haven't gotten caught is that Amazon has not been looking. So they're going to start proactively looking, and I suspect I'm going to be very, very busy for a while. It's also going to get harder to get approved for additional accounts. They really, really, really want you to only have one account. Eventually they're not going to take receipts from retailers of any kind. Now, I had put it in my blog post that I had heard October. I don't know if that's true for sure. I've gotten conflicting information from Amazon, but the thing that everyone seemed to agree on is that it's going to happen. So the question is when. But at a certain point, all of your receipts, if you're buying, from the Coach outlet, Nike outlet, things like that, they're not going to accept them. It's going to get harder to get ungated in categories. You think it's hard to get into beauty, health, and grocery now? It's only going to get worse. They already don't accept receipts. You have to do invoices. Now, the new thing you may have heard about is they're going to make everyone give free returns for all products on the platform. So this is great for the buyer. Remember the buyer trust? It's going to really be hard for drop shippers to make money if they have to do that. It's going to be really hard for merchant fulfilled sellers to make money on the platform if they're forced to make all returns free. So this will move more people towards FBA, right? That's the secret plan. Except as we all know, the warehouses are full. And we're already expecting huge delays in Q4 with getting your goods into the warehouse. So why they want more of us is beyond me. So that's more of the bad news. And in case you were wondering, is there any good news? Yes. Okay. So there are some good things. If you're a private label seller and you have your own products and you are brand registered, you will soon be able to gate your own brand, which means you can kick off interlopers and cheaters and counterfeiters. It's coming. Of course, it's going to come with a fee. Nothing is free. And it has to be for a unique product. So again, if you're buying something off of Alibaba, putting a sticker on it and calling it private label, no, that's not private label. Private label is a unique product where your brand and logo is an integral part of the product and engraved in a permanent way on it. And so just beware of that. But if you're having problems today with interlopers coming onto your listing, be happy that within a few months you will be able to kick those bastards off by yourself, and you won't have to wait, weeks and months for seller performance to get back to you. So those who are approved for a brand will find that there's less competition, right? They're not having to compete with the retail arbitrage guys. They won't necessarily have 100 people on a listing. Volume buyers will have critical advantages. So again, if you're able to go to your provider and buy out all of their stock, you're going to kick ass, okay? So there are some advantages there. And private label sellers, which you may not know this, but they can actually get ungated in beauty, grocery, and health without invoices. So we know how to do that. Call me. But that is, of course, if you really are a private label seller. So again, don't come to me with your meat claw with a sticker on it. Paperwork matters. I'm just going to very quickly say, because we're almost out of time, that your receipt, your invoice cannot be doctored. They have super secret software that tells them when you've been fooling with it. This is what a invoice looks like. I know it seems obvious, but you wouldn't believe the things that people give me. It helps if it has the UPC code on it. It should have a detailed description of the product. No pro forma invoices. Okay, pro forma means you haven't actually bought the product yet. This invoice has to show that you purchased this product. It needs to have a complete and authentic address. The address needs to be yours, the one that's on your Amazon account. Amazon keeps a database of invoices, so they know if your invoice looks radically different from someone else who buys from the same manufacturer. It helps if you also get a letter from your supplier authorizing you to sell. These are things that you can now do proactively, and you should when you're buying product. Okay, Q4, it's going to be bad. Seller performance will be overwhelmed and respond slowly. You'll get shut down faster for bad buyer experiences. There's going to be, of course, always a high focus on performance issues. Basically, more brands will require approval, and if your buyers are complaining that your stuff's inauthentic, you're going to be in trouble. So I made it through. So this is one of the services we offer. We have two kinds. Get clean, stay clean with Amazon, basically, but we have emergency services, and those are account reinstatement, listing reinstatements. Those are usually urgent care. And then we have preventative services, and this is a program where we will look at your account, monitor it for you weekly, and help you catch problems before they get big as much as we can. And then, of course, my book, you're always welcome to read that. There's a lot of good information in there, if I do say so myself.